And welcome to the next edition of Atomic Ergo. As always, I'm your host, Earl Ray, and we are so pleased to have with us today Kristi Moore. Kristi, good afternoon to you. Welcome to the program.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Right. As I understand it, you are currently a senior ergonomics and well-being consultant with an insurance broker. You
Mhm.
have your master's of occupational therapy and bachelor of science in occupational therapy from Eastern Michigan University, and you're pursuing your doctorate of occupational therapy at the University of Montana. Did I get all that right?
Correct,
Oh,
correct.
awesome, awesome. And you're in North Carolina, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, I am in Charlotte, North Carolina.
All right. So the way we usually start, I like to know what your driving influences were. So I always ask, is there someone or some precipitating event that gave you the drive to specialize in ergonomics?
Yeah, so obviously my background is occupational therapy. I spent many years being a bedside therapist. So I worked in a level one trauma hospital, I worked in a nursing home, I did some outpatient therapy. And when I was there, it kind of got to the point where I didn't feel like I was helping people anymore. I just felt like I was like putting bandages on problems. And I wanted to try to get more to the preventative side. So I started taking continuing education around ergonomics. And I really loved it. And I didn't realize why I loved it, but I loved it because like even when I did therapy in the hospital, I used to make dynamic splints for people. So that's a little bit more of that like mechanical brain, right? Like I had to like design and figure out how to make my splints work was so people could actually use them at the same time. And then I recalled when I was in high school and I did like an aptitude test with my counselor, and she told me that I scored really high for mechanical reasoning and math for a girl. And I was like, oh, okay. But I think like just somehow along the way, like I loved helping people and I didn't feel like I was doing that anymore. And I want to get on the preventative side of it. So it kind of all came together. And then I realized I'm like, oh, I like this because I have that mechanical brain side of me, that ergonomics, because a lot of ergonomists are, have the engineering background. And it just kind of got me that way that I just wanted to help people and I wanted to get ahead of people getting injured. And I live my life very like trying to be preventative and prevent stuff. So it just made more sense. I just was getting really, really burned out and hard that I felt like I was trying to motivate the unmotivated and it was just draining for me. So I wanted to get on the other end of it to try to help people, be healthier and, make better choices and not get injured and end up, with, so many issues that they have to go to a therapist, which is great. I loved what I did. It wasn't really, I was just getting really burnt out from
So
doing
we
it.
we
So.
follow you on LinkedIn, and you're very well respected, very well known in not just the ergonomic field, but also in the OT community as well.
Mhm.
How did you develop such a strong presence in each of the communities?
I think with, is just connecting with people and, reaching out and just kind of to make contacts. I have a guy on LinkedIn that I connect with. He's in Germany and he always sends me stuff. And then if I find something, I send it to him and it's all around ergonomics because he puts some really great content out there. So I think just being really active on LinkedIn has really helped me kind of expand my network, which is, I guess, the point of LinkedIn.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Our CVO Steve Davis has a huge LinkedIn following up through
Hmm.
Ergonauts. So it's he's always looking for upcoming stars in the
Hmm.
industry and profession. And he speaks very very highly of you.
Oh, great.
What have you found to be the biggest challenges in your profession as you've moved through your career?
Um, for me, getting into ergonomics, like I said, it's predominantly a lot of engineers. So getting people to look outside of just engineers to go into ergonomics because there's so many different professions can kind of tap into it. We just bring different perspectives to it. I work with my other colleagues. Some of them are industrial engineers. There's a physical therapy assistant. There's someone who did, I think, sports medicine. So to me, it's is learning that like other professions can do it. Because I know when I was going to get like different certifications, the CPE was one that they wanted me to get, but I didn't qualify for it because a lot of the prerequisite courses were very geared towards engineering, and I don't have those prerequisite courses. So I ended up doing the CIE, which was which was more welcoming, I would say, to professions outside of engineering kind of thing. So that to
Uh,
me was a bit of a challenge, just to say, hey, I can do this too.
I just had a guest that summed it up this way, and I thought it was quite intuitive. He said, one of the knocks on ergonomics is that it's
Mhm.
not science. You hear people say that, and he goes, you know what? You're right. It's not a science. It's a culmination of a bunch of science. So
Mhm.
that's what you're talking about. A lot of
Exactly.
different people from a lot of different backgrounds coming together, solving problems before they become problems.
Yeah, and what's unique about for my background as an OT is we look at all aspects. So we're looking more at individuals, typically. I remember my professor, she was saying to us, she's like, there's no such thing as someone who's disabled. Their environment's disabling them. And if we modify their environment, we make them independent. And I'm like, that's what ergonomics is, right? We modify their environment to make it better for them. And I was like that because I've worked with some other, like I've seen some other ergonomists and they heavily focus on the engineering, but they leave out the human. And it's like, but you can't forget the person. Like
Right.
you also got to look at what they're doing.
Here's
Like
something that will fix your environment. Well, how do you
yeah,
use it? I
yeah.
give up.
Well, what do you do? Well, what about the person? What if we got to also look at the individual person? So, in the occupational therapy, well, we have a model of practice called the PEOP. So it's the person, environment, occupation, performance model. And basically look at it as when all those pieces come together, that's where you have, the best quality of life. So for me, that's the way I look at ergonomics. I look at the environment, I look at the occupation, and then for them, I look at like the group of people. And where it all comes together is where you have great performance. And then I also like to say you also have more safety because if they're performing things in efficiency and they're good positioning, they're going to be safer.
So, what are some of the trends that you are encountering that you feel like will have an effect on the profession?
Yeah, so I think with like most professions, AI is really changing the game. Um, I don't see it as like replacing me. I see it as enhancing what I already do and bringing awareness to it. So obviously, I don't need an AI tool to look at someone and say, this is what their issue is. I can see that. But the cool thing that I like about it is clients can use that and say, hey, we have this person, like we got this information and saying we have an ergonomic issues. We don't know how to fix it. What do we do? And then Stride can come in. So I think AI is definitely going to change the game, but I think it's going to change the game and bring more awareness to it for clients. And then they're going to have to say, okay, we have these issues. How do we fix them?
Right.
Now, I'm sure AI will eventually get to that point where it can make the recommendations. But I think that might be like years down the road. But I see AI, more of it, not as much wearable technology. I know a lot of people love wearable technology, which I think is great. Um, but I feel like when people wear stuff, they change their behaviors. But if you can have AI and like the cameras that can see it, you're going to get more of like the true what's actually happening
I noticed
in
you
real
have one of the
time.
Aura rings as well. I
I
think.
do. I love this
Okay,
thing.
so I do too. But so it's funny that you're talking about this. So when I first got mine, I had what I call like Aura ring anxiety. Like I would
Yeah,
wake up
I've said
and
that.
go and go, oh my gosh, how did I sleep? And so if I didn't get a star, I would get stressed out about it.
Sure.
So it's interesting how technology can actually affect the human component. The one thing that I'm concerned about with AI is that I feel like it's okay right now with your generation and my generation. I think it's okay because I know how to do my job, my day job.
Mhm.
I know how to do that. You know how to do this. and it's a supplement to what we already know. What I'm worried about is when it moves from being a supplement to being a substitute.
Yeah.
Uh, and then I think that's going to be a problem. When you take people like you and I out of what it is that we do, and just try to substitute a computer for it, or a chatbot, I think we're going to have trouble out of that. And so I hope it's
Yeah.
developed in all professions,
Mhm.
responsibly.
Yeah, and like for me too is like a lot of the ones where you take your camera and then they look at someone and they say these are the issues. They it's still not there. It doesn't match what the human eye can pick up. This I should say the skilled human eye can pick
Right.
up because
Right.
I've watched some of them and I was like, well, it's not talking about their ankle mobility. I was like, when I can see their ankle mobility, their knees buckling in, so their glutes aren't that strong. I'm not like, and they're like, yeah, we didn't pick up on any of that. I said, it's because it's not there yet to have that ability for the human eye or the skilled human eye, I should say, to look at it and be like, these are the issues that they're having.
So I always
But I
enjoy.
like it. I like it in the fact that it lets the client or someone who's knowing say, hey, we have an issue.
We need help.
Who now we need help, right? Because most of the time you say, oh, I do ergonomics, and they're like, we don't need ergonomics. And then you show them and they're like, oh, we actually do need your help.
So speaking of helping people, I'd like for you to share with us a success story that you're proud of.
I have a few, but there's one that I'm really proud of because I thought it brought my OT world and like my ability, like an ability to be, I don't want to say innovative, but just bridging those two worlds together. I had a client, I won't say their name or anything, but their employees had to sit in these vehicles and test them in different terrains for like 8 hours a day. Like they had to sit and like move these machines around. And they all complained that it was uncomfortable because their machines are not really designed for someone to sit in them for 8 hours. That's just not what they're
Right.
designed to do. So I was like, what can I do? And then I remembered when I was working in nursing homes, our patients would sit in wheelchairs for all day, right? And I was like, well, they have cushions. And then there's one specific cushion that I really loved that I sat on and I tried it out all the time. And that was one of my recommendations. And I reached out to the company and I said, hey, do you guys have any studies or anything you do with how much force this can sustain? Because these vehicles are bouncy. So there's going to be a lot of force on them. And they said no. And they said, why? And I kind of told them what my recommendation was. And they were like, we never thought about our cushions being for people that sit like semi truck drivers, bus drivers. And I was like, you guys have pressure release cushions that are far superior than any seat because I can attest to it. I sat in it. They look like there's different types of cushions. There's like a Rojo, which is air. This one kind of looked like sour cream packets in it, and you could like take them in and out.
Huh.
But they were so nice. They're not cheap at all. They're not gonna be cheap. But I was like, for someone who has to sit all day,
It's a
it's a
no-brainer.
pressure
Yeah.
release. And so like the company, they're like, we never even thought to market them to that. And I said,
Did
you're
you say,
welcome. Can
okay,
I get
make
a
the check
cut?
payable to Kristi Moore for the
And
consultancy? I hope. I mean, come
I
on.
was like,
Yeah.
yeah, can I get if you're gonna start doing this, can I get like this is my idea?
Yeah.
And the client loved it. And then I just thought I was like, wow, that was like I was really proud of myself for like kind of thinking outside of the box with that one.
That's good. So the way people find us now, it's always fascinating. Find our broadcast. It's, word of mouth, LinkedIn. It's on all the social media platforms. But I see this kid, sitting in somebody's basement. 18, 17, 18 years old, sitting here thinking, oh, I wonder what I want to do with my life. And they type something into Google, and then it turns out that this pops up and they watch it. What do you say to that kid who thinks that they might want to work in ergonomics or workplace wellness? What's your advice?
My advice is um, first off, you gotta like being around people. You gotta be able to kind of deal with sometimes being challenged. about what you want because people don't like change, and our job is to come in and make change. There's many different avenues to go into ergonomics. You could go from, my side of like the therapy world. You could go through the engineering world. The nice thing is that there's many different avenues to get there and to see if you even like it. Um, but you have to have some ability to like want to work around people and be able to kind of be really confident in what you're doing and what you're bringing it to it, because as a consultant you're telling them, hey, make these changes, and you'll get pushback. And then in my head, whenever I get pushback or some people are just not like getting it, or whatever, my professor pops in my head and said there's no such thing as a difficult patient, you just haven't figured out how to get through to them. So I love my job, but I would always tell people there's many ways to get here. It just depends on which one you find to be the most intriguing to you. The most common way, obviously, is through engineering or human factors. I'm kind of a different route, but it's a route I loved.
So, keeping that in mind, what would you like for your, personal legacy to be in ergonomics and occupational therapy, workplace wellness industry? Uh, I think kind of keeping in mind your background.
Hmm.
What?
So I think my legacy that I would like is it's part of my. Sorry, go ahead.
No, no, go ahead. We had a
So,
lag, I think.
oh, sorry. Oh, got it. For me, I think my legacy would be kind of tied to my capstone project that I'm working on, and it's around safe patient handling. Working in that area and then working with different healthcare clients and seeing it across the board, I kind of noticed that there was a piece of the puzzle missing, is the way I would say it. Is that and it comes from the fact that I did CrossFit. So I was like doing like Olympic lifting and I learned a lot about functional movement. And then I realized that safe patient handling, that's the piece that's missing. Like we have mechanical lifts, we talk about body mechanics, but body mechanics to me is running before you learn how to walk or crawl. Functional movements, knowing how to properly move and position your muscle, your body, engage your muscles is your crawl walk. And body mechanics is your run, and we skip those two little steps and we go right to the run, and then we focus on the different lifts, which is great. It's awesome that we have lifts to help us, but if these lifts were the solution, why are people still getting injured at such a high rate? Why are nurses and CNAs getting injured at such a high rate? It's because they don't know how to position or use their body when they're doing stuff, even if they're using a lift. For example, when you work at like a nursing home or any like a hospital, they tell you you're not allowed to lift over a certain amount of weight. We're a no lift facility. You'll hear them say we're a no lift facility. It's always laughable to me because when you work in those facilities, if you have a patient and you're trying to get them dressed and they had a stroke and that they can't use the left side of their body and they happen to also be morbidly obese, you have to lift a leg. Do you know how heavy that leg is? It's a heavy leg, it's a heavy arm. And so learning how to use your body in the way that you are the strongest and the safest, I think is so critical. And it's a piece that's missing. And I would see it bedside. So when I would be transferring a patient or I would be with the CNA or nurse, and I would notice that they wouldn't be using properly, and then I would train them right there. So my legacy, long story short, is I would just like to see safe patient handling training tweaked to include the person, right? This is how you're going to do a proper hinge. This is how you're going to squat. This is how, if you have to push and pull, this is what you need to be doing. And to get that muscle memory so that it's second nature to them.
Well,
And I think that would help drive down injuries along with the machines.
if you ever want to come back on the program and spend some time, doing some examples or something, on the video, that would be fantastic, especially as part of your capstone.
Yeah.
If you needed, something to supplement your capstone, that would be great. Kristi, thank you so much for your time today. It was fascinating. I enjoyed meeting you, and what an interesting
Yes, yeah, me too.
background. And it's it's really neat that you listen. I've interviewed about 25, 30 people on the show. And you're the only person that has had this track to to get where
Oh,
you are. Listen. I think you need to shout that from the mountaintops, and because we need more people like you in the industry that's come up the way that you have. So I think that makes you unique. So,
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I
well,
actually know a handful of OTs that are also in ergonomics
right,
because of
yeah.
connecting on LinkedIn.
Yeah, well, that's you're right. That's the way it works. So,
Mhm.
but again, thank you so much, Kristi, for coming on the show. Like to remind you all, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave those down in the links. If you ask a question or suggest a topic, don't be surprised if you get an email back from our Chief Visionary Officer, Steve Davis. He actually still responds, believe it or not, with all the other things he's got going on, he still responds to emails that are left about this show. This is kind of his baby, so to speak. So appreciate your time today, Kristi. Again, thank you for coming on the show. You're more than welcome anytime. Just get back in touch with us and let us know what's going on in your life and your career. We'd be happy to have you on again. And I just want to remind you all to be good to each other, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you.